Hi, welcome to the Protected by Purpose podcast. It's powered by Newark Ironbound Film and Television Studios. This is your host, Dorinda Walker. And I am thrilled to have with me my guest, Simone E. Morris. Simone, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Simone, first I just want to thank you and applaud you for trekking it from Connecticut to Newark, New Jersey to be on the podcast. So tell everyone who Simone E. Morris is.
Simone E. Morris, or we can just say Simone Morris, is a speaker, author, coach, mom, wife to be, all that stuff. I'm doing a lot of things, but my passion is around inclusion, creating inclusion in any scenario, as well as career advancement, how to get people, specifically women, into the driver's seat for their careers. So those are the things that rock my boat or make me happy and keep me working.
So that's what we both have in common. Because I'm all about empowering women to be great. You and I met, I believe, through LinkedIn connection. Was that
I remember being a fan, Dorinda. I sat next to you many years ago at a conference in Tarrytown, New York. And I remember, I think you sponsored the conference, or one of the sponsors, and I was asking you questions and you gave me some guidance. And so I connected with you on social media and just stayed watching what you were doing, and we just reconnected over the years and stayed connected. So
that's awesome. So I read your book today, The Power of Owning Your Career.
Yay.
And there was something that really resonated with me when you talked about the point where you needed a sabbatical. So tell us about what brought you to that point.
Awesome. Well, I'm originally from Jamaica, so I say that because my upbringing impacts who I am, how I show up, and how dare I consider an unpaid sabbatical, because I know better. I need to work, get paid, do my job, live, and all those things. But I got to a point in my career where I just was not happy, and I really felt like I was going to lose my mind. Like, I'm going to quit. I really wanted to quit, but I was having this fight with myself. You know better. You cannot quit unless you have another job, and you have a good job, you have good benefits, and all these things. I was having the conversation in my head and not doing it. And I just felt myself acting out in different scenarios where someone would piss me off in a meeting, and I just was so angry and needing a timeout that the outburst came. And so I had to ask for a sabbatical, and thankfully it was granted. But it was a big decision because I had to take time off, and I didn't get paid for it, but it was by far the best decision I've ever made.
I recently wrote a blog about my experience with struggling to leave corporate America. And so I can totally relate to that experience. What happened as an outcome of the sabbatical?
Oh my gosh, a new Simone emerged. I used to go and take walks, and I met people at the park, and I did nothing. I don't know where the days went, but it was just a healing, because I felt that I was so wounded from not moving up in the corporate space. I had this vision of being at the top, or director, VP, whatever, and it wasn't happening for me. So I was just so disappointed, and I couldn't understand, because I had a degree, I had these experiences, I was making really good money, but I just wasn't moving. So when I took the time out, I had to heal from disappointment that I wasn't where I wanted to be professionally and personally. So there was a healing period, and then it was, what am I going to do? So I hired a coach, and we had conversations, and I realized that I actually have been coaching for a long time. I just didn't have the title or the education, but people would come to me and ask for career advice for many years, because the perception, people see you doing things, you're doing great, tell me how you do it, etc. So I found myself, and I did coaches training. So I enrolled in a program, and then I did the certification. So I became ICF certified as a coach, and then I got called back for my sabbatical early. I got called back, and I was wooed by a trip to Napa Valley. And I'll never forget because I was like, wine, yay, I'm good. And so I went back into that world, you know, almost forgetting that healing and that balance, and then it happened again. It wasn't in the form of a sabbatical, but it was in the form of a medical leave. I had to have a surgery. And so I felt like those were lessons where God was saying to me, I don't know what to do with this girl. She's not listening, and I'm going to make her listen. So I had the sabbatical, the 3 month, and then I had the surgery, so I was out for a medical leave. And then when I went back again, I was like, I'm just not happy. I need to figure something out. And I really feel like God worked it out for me because my position changed. You know, there were many changes in the organization. It was my turn. And I just was like, you know what? It's time. And that was it.
And I'm glad you brought up faith in God, because I'm a believer and I know that God gives us signs. And sometimes we are resistant to go and to look at the signs, but He's closing that door for bigger and better opportunities. So what was the impetus behind you writing your book?
Oh my goodness, because I wrote this is my second book. So I have the first book, and it's called Achievement Unlocked: Strategies to Set Goals and Manifest Them. So for a very long time I've been very passionate about setting goals and achieving goals, and I've achieved a lot in my life. And I wrote that sort of in the hallway at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, after I had my daughter, just because it had been sitting down waiting to be completed. And when I completed it, I was like, I don't think that's the book that I'm supposed to write. I kind of feel like there's something else I'm supposed to say. And that's where that came from, where I started thinking about my career and how many people have been asking me about careers, and how actually I decided that I need to get in the driver's seat for my career, because things were happening and I wasn't happy with it, and it was because I wasn't in the driver's seat. So it was sort of a movement that was formed to say, get in the driver's seat and navigate your career where you want it to go, take responsibility for your career, and it just came out of me from that space.
So in the book you give a lot of good advice, and you reference the importance of having individual success squad, right? And an entrepreneurial success squad. What's the difference?
Well, I think if you're not on an entrepreneurial path, you have different needs. So I wanted to have different perspectives. When you're an entrepreneur, you know, you need a lawyer, you need an accountant, you know, you need a virtual assistant. These are things that you might not need as an individual. So your success squad looks different, and it has unfolded over the years for me. So a similarity might be a financial planner. I need one as an entrepreneur, and I need one as an individual. But do I need a lawyer, an insurance agent on my team? Maybe not so much as an individual, maybe. It depends on what you're doing, but I sort of feel like there's a difference, and I started seeing the differences as an entrepreneur.
Well, I saw them quick moving from corporate to entrepreneurship. Yeah, because, you know, you definitely, like you said, you need the lawyer, you need the accountant, like
you need a lot of people on your team. Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that I think people need to take into consideration when they're about to leap into entrepreneurship.
Yes. And you, by the way, you can be in entrepreneurship and not leap. Because I have been in business for 4 years, and I would say the first 2 years I was half-stepping. And what that meant was I didn't really believe in myself. I was so scared, and I heard all those voices in my head of, get a job, what are you doing? And honestly, the first 2 years, my mom she thought I was just at home, like, twiddling my thumbs and, like, oh, how's the job search going? Oh, I keep praying for you. I'm like, oh my God, I have a job. I'm my own business. Like, you know, I was feeling really bad. And then, I started listening. So I was still applying for jobs, even though I was an entrepreneur, thinking, okay, let me keep doing this to pass the time. When I get a job, I'll switch over. And then I just was like, enough. And I am sick of trying to convince people that I'm a good investment. I am a good investment. I'm a great employee, I think. I'm well educated. All these things that I was listing that I had a difficult time conveying to people to hire me because I switched functions between the tech space and over to human resources. It was a hard switch for me. So I just got tired of convincing people, and I just said, you know what, I better choose one. And I chose me, and I bet on myself, my brand, all those things. And honestly, that was another game changer for me once I decided.
I love that you said you bet on yourself. I love it, love it, love it. Because so many times when we're leveling up and doing the work that, fulfills our soul, which is fulfilling God's purpose in our lives, the devil will send new demons to distract us.
Absolutely.
And we need to understand, that those are just distractions and not take our eye off the prize. So kudos to you for believing in yourself.
Thank you.
In the book, you highlight the importance of communication, the release, and the ask. Tell us more about that.
I think when I say release, I mean release disappointments, release wounds. Who has hurt you in your career in the past? And it can be painful, different situations where you're just hanging on to them. Release that and, embrace your new chapter and ask for what you want. I think a lot of times I was afraid, as I think back to my corporate experience, I was afraid to ask for things. I believe that I was getting the raises, whatever the percentage was. I had a job, I had the benefits, I had access, I had a lot of things, and how dare I ask for more? And so I didn't ask for a lot of things. And so I got bold, as the years went along, and I became invested in the diversity and inclusion space where I started asking for things. I remember I had a $5,000 budget as a employee resource group leader, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? There's a lot to do. And so I created this proposal, and it was for $80,000, and I got 100 people to go on the corporate dime to Washington, D.C., and I was like, oh my God, I asked for this and I got it. And I think it was just an awareness and an awakening of what's possible if I actually ask. So then I got bold and was like, can I see my HR file? Because there must be something in it, because I'm not moving up. So let me see what's in it. Where I would have never asked for that in the past, I got bold with the ask. So now I tell people, just ask. I asked you, to come to my workshop and be on the panel, and I'm an introvert, so I would have been shy to do something like that before, but I'm getting bolder and asking more, and I think it's important that we do that.
It's very important. So that's something we both have in common. I'm an introvert as well, so I know the pain of it. But you know what? I got good at asking for stuff, and I'll share a story with you. I was a director, and I was taking on a new position as a director, but it was more responsibility. It was leading a cross-functional team. And I remember when they said, oh, congratulations, you got the job, the hiring manager. And I'm looking, and he's like, what are you looking for? My raise letter, my new salary letter. And he said, oh, no, it's a lateral position, so your salary's the same. And I said, no. And I broke it down, there's going to be more responsibility. I'm going to be managing 6 different, teams and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he looked really dumbfounded, and he said, well, I have to talk to HR and see. I said, no. This is the market reference range. This is my salary. This is where I think I should be. And you make the decision. HR just makes it happen.
Right.
So I put him in a position where if he said no, he knew that I knew it was him. And the next day I got a call saying, congratulations, you got your raise.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
So, yeah, I learned quickly, but I learned by watching others, and particularly non-people of color, have no problem asking, and men in particular as well. So I was like, okay, if y'all can do it, I can do it too.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's important to have non-people of color sponsors. So I tell anybody in corporate America, make sure you have a white male sponsor because it's so important. Now, in my case, I did have a lot of African American sponsors who would vouch for me, but it was through, building those relationships. I too co-chaired a business resource group.
Awesome.
Which was an amazing experience for me. But yeah, take advantage of all of the opportunities and make sure that you learn from those experiences, because I look at corporate America as investors. They invest in us so that we can go on and do what God called us to do.
I love
Eventually,
that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I want to say, just because we started talking about resource groups again, that it's such a great opportunity for leadership experience. And I think, I've heard people say, I don't have the time, I'm too busy with my job, and it's just such a great opportunity to get exposure to the C-suite and to get external visibility, and it was great for me, and so I highly recommend that to anyone.
Yeah, based on my experience, when I first signed on to be a co-lead, I was so afraid to get on the stage and speak to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you just told me, 10 years ago, Dorinda, you're going to be on stages talking to hundreds and thousands of people, I'd have said, oh, you're crazy. And what that experience forced me to do was to get on stages, and it prepared me for the role that I have now as a speaker, internationally. So very excited about that. But what are some of the signs and behaviors that we demonstrate when we avoid taking ownership of our careers?
Well, here's an example. I worked at a liquor company, and I'm not a big drinker. And so back to that, how you were raised, I believe that I do my job, I stay at my desk, I do my job, I get the job done, I get recognized, I get my raise, I move up the ladder. And actually I was seeing people who were at the water cooler or people who were at the bar moving ahead, and I wasn't moving ahead. And I just would scratch my head like, why do I have to go up there? What? I didn't understand networking, and I don't think that you're taught at least I wasn't taught networking at home. Maybe I was taught about building family relationships, and I didn't make the correlation. But networking, I would say, is a game-changing move that you really, really need to build strategic relationships, and you need to get out there. I mean, I remember when I first had my daughter, I was trying to network behind the computer, and it just was not working. I had to actually go out and meet people and build relationships, and then I started to see the results of building these relationships. So I would say that the importance of networking is something that is widely misunderstood. I mean, I see people on LinkedIn with a picture of them with their dog, or a picture of them at, not a professional photo, or they have a profile and they're not communicating, keeping the network abreast of what they're doing or engaging in conversation. They just don't get it. So I'll be safe and play on Facebook or wherever I can play where I don't have to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's because of lack of knowledge and not understanding. And honestly, I sort of feel like LinkedIn causes a barrier to entry, because I think people are so busy filtering themselves to not make a mistake and be judged by how they show up there and have other people see it and make a mistake and feel the effects of it, that I think a lot of people don't use LinkedIn. Even though there's a lot of people that use it, there's a lot of people that don't use it as well. I
agree. And if someone asks to connect with me and they don't have a profile picture, I do not accept. And I have a 93% engagement rate on LinkedIn.
How do you find out your engagement rate?
LinkedIn sends me notes.
Oh, I need a note.
And so, but it's because I use LinkedIn as a tool to get business. So 90% of my paid speaking engagements come through LinkedIn.
Do you use a navigator?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Now I get it. All right.
So I have the premium subscription, and I use it because I have access to emails and all of that kind of stuff. And now that I'm an entrepreneur, it's a way for me to generate leads for my business.
So it's worth the investment.
It's definitely worth the investment.
All right.
Yeah, I tell
have to go
everybody.
Back to it.
And in terms of all of the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on. I have a Snapchat account. I'm on Pinterest. But I find that for business purposes, LinkedIn is the most useful. Twitter, every once in a while, I'll get a DM from someone who's looking for a speaker or looking to collaborate on business, but nowhere near what I get on LinkedIn. So I encourage everyone to build a professional profile on LinkedIn and make sure you keep it up to date. And to your point, share what's going on. Everything doesn't have to be perfect, but you never know where your opportunities are going to come from.
It's so true, Dorinda. I mentioned in the book about tooting our own horn. When we are our best advocates, so you need to toot your horn and toot it loudly, in my opinion. And so I toot my horn like, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. And I know it works because I've gotten those DMs behind the scene. Hey, seeing the great things you're doing, would you be interested in this? If I had just been like, they'll know that I'm an entrepreneur and that I could use some business or it wouldn't happen. So I need to, why do brands do it? Think about, they keep showing up, show up. The MasterCard, the Starbucks, the whoever, all these companies, they show up so we remember them. We as entrepreneurs need to show up so that people remember us. So one of the things in the book I mention is that we don't do a good enough job of tooting our horn because we feel like it's bragging. And so it's, somebody else will say it, I'm humble, I'm not. Yeah, okay, I've tried that. So now I'm going to try the other way.
Yeah, I watch men in corporate America do it all the time. And then I was like, okay, if you toot your own horn, it gets you this. Okay.
Yeah.
So I learned to break the cycle quickly.
Yeah.
I want to get back to the importance of building a network. And for me, I found that it was important not only to build a network internally, if you're in corporate America, but externally, and to have your own brand. Because if you're only associated with the company you work for and no one knows who you are, it could be detrimental when the downsizing comes or when you decide you want to take that leap, but you haven't established a brand for yourself. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Oh my gosh, we're like speaking the same language here. It's like, here's a tennis ball. Because I feel the same way, that you can get lost behind your heavy hitter corporate brand and not exist. And I found that when I left the corporate space, that I would show up and I'd be like, hi, I'm Simone, and I didn't have a company to get comfortable behind, and I was feeling less than. And when I started saying I work for myself, Simone Morris Enterprises, and I had to get comfortable with saying my brand and keep saying it, and I believe that is one of the things that's missing too. We don't have a personal brand. We don't spend the time making sure that people know us externally. And luckily for me, with the business resource group work that I was doing, I got access to, whether it was recruiting at a conference or going to a diversity and inclusion event, I got access. So I got smart where it was like, we don't have budget to send you to this conference. I'm like, oh, let me apply to be a speaker because I can use this background and I can talk about my resource group work, and it worked. So I started speaking at diversity best practices conferences, and that was the start of building the Simone Morris brand. And I try to be strategic of my thought leadership and where it shows up, and it's not just me, but if you Google me, I'm showing up in different places and I'm building the Simone Morris brand.
That's awesome. What other advice would you give to people who are struggling to take ownership of their career?
Oh my goodness, listen to Joel Osteen. Honestly, Joel Osteen has gotten me through some days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, because he makes me laugh. He's always telling a story and a joke, and there's a spiritual component. It's not heavy. There's a piece in there, and I joke around and say listen, but actually listen, because he's going to put you in a good mood. I would say exercising, making time for that, just to kind of stop the noise in your head, slow it down a bit, and I find that exercise helps with that. So I do a little bit of running. There's also a great book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I actually got a tattoo on my wrist, because I went to get Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and the man said to me, that's too much words for this space. And I was like, what? All right, so I picked an image, and it means courage. So every time I get afraid, I look at it and I remember what the book says, and it says, whatever happens, you can handle it. And I just keep saying that to myself, and I said that when I was going through the downsizing process, when I had no clue what my next step was going to be. Whatever happens, you can handle it. Whatever happens, you can handle it. And I just kept saying that, so.
No, that's awesome. I did a Facebook Live yesterday with the Boss Success Forum, and I talked about the importance of having courage.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so important that you put your faith ahead of your fear, or else you'll be stuck.
Yes.
Right? So, tell everybody where they can follow Simone Morris, where they can buy your books.
Awesome. Well, you definitely can get the books on Amazon, and you can go to SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org and find out about my podcast, the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. You can find out about the book. You can find out where I'm going to be. And I'm on all the different social media channels like we talked about. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm not on Snapchat though. I have to say I don't understand it.
I don't either. I have an account, but I may have used it once.
But you can find. I mean, if you just remember Simone Morris and you Google me, you'll find me. And if you go on Amazon, you'll find the books as well.
Awesome. So I asked all of my guests to share 3 life lessons. So share 3 life lessons in the life journey of Simone Morris.
Life lesson number 1 is to not be so afraid to take a risk. I think I was so afraid for such a long time that I limited the amount of risk that I was willing to take. And I can see now, if I took more risk, how much further along I would be. But I was afraid, and so I did what was comfortable and safe. And now I learned the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. So I would say risk more. I think the other thing that I will say is have an emergency fund and just keep socking it away. Don't say you can't afford it. If it's $100, just keep saving, because when things happen that are outside of your control and you need the money, or you're an entrepreneur and you're not getting paid in the way, you need this cushion to dip into. So for me, I did learn to save. So I was saving that whole time in corporate America, and it has benefited me, the saving, the cushion that I've had to rely on. It helps me to make decisions with less fear that, I do have some money there to rely on. So I would say that's the second thing. And the third thing is to really surround yourself with positive people, and to believe in yourself, and again, bet on yourself, because people will talk you out of your ideas. You'll be like, hey, this is a great idea, and depend on who you speak to, they can talk you out of it. But if you surround yourself with positive people who are doing things and ahead of you, they're like, yeah, go for it, give it a try, see what happens, let me know how I can support you. And I find that makes such a difference. And I think those are, there's so many lessons. 3 was hard to narrow it down to 3, but there's 3.
Well, you did a great job, so thank you for sharing that. So you said earlier you're from Jamaica. What part of Jamaica?
I was born in Kingston.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's why you understand I want to get back there, I want to speak there, and all that good stuff. So.
Yeah. So we're going to put it out into the universe now that Simone Morris will be having some type of speaking events.
That's right.
In Jamaica, and we'll all go and support you. So we're going to put it out into the universe.
All right, it's out there, so I'm coming back once it's manifested.
It is out there. So where do you see Simone Morris 10 years from now?
Oh my gosh. Do you go to LaGuardia Airport at all?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm still telling the example anyway. Every time I go to LaGuardia Airport, I pass this building and it says Simone at the top of the building. So my first time I was like, oh my gosh, that's my building. Every time I go to LaGuardia Airport, I see this building and it says Simone at the top. And so I feel like I'm building an empire. And it's just a matter of time that it is going to manifest, where there's this building of folks that are positive and changing the world. I'm about making people feel welcomed and included, and I really want to drive that message home, because I feel like there's a lot of focus on diversifying the workplace. Yeah, we get it, but if they get there and they don't feel included, then you still have a problem. So for me, I'm more passionate. I'm leaning more towards the inclusion space, and what can I do to create more of that more education and opportunities in that space. So I see my company growing. I see opportunities to go international and more books, more resources, all that.
That's awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I had an amazing time.
You're
talking.
so welcome. So this has been the Protected by Purpose podcast, and it's powered by Nork Ironbound Film and Television Studios. Be sure to follow Nork International Film Festival, which is happening in September. And peace and good night.
Good night.